It's time for the weekly sports page with the dynamic David Coleman. Stay tuned for thrills, chills, and yes, spills. Oh yeah, and a whole lot of other great stuff. Call 855-525-5683. Tweet your questions at Dynamic Sports PA or Facebook. Drop a line on Dynamic Weekly Sports Show. Sit back, relax, and groove while Dynamic drops sports in your ear hole.
Nebraska wins the game on the final play of the contest. Oh, baby! How about that? Jacked up indeed.
Are you kidding me?
They're not gonna keep him off the field tonight. Holy cow!
Now here's Dynamic David Coleman.
Welcome to the Weekly Sports Magazine. I'm Dynamic Dave on JoinNetRadio.com. Hit every Saturday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. Appreciate you joining us. We've had a little hiatus. We're trying to get some stuff together. I will tell you, if you don't know by now, we've moved to the DMV. If you don't know what that is, that's the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia area. Actually, I now live in Towson, Maryland, and we'll be bringing shows from my studio that I'm putting together in my new apartment. So it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have more content. Of course, we'll have content from the Weekly Sports Magazine as well as Black Focus Radio. So I hope you all will stick and stay. Don't go away. So we got tons and tons of things to talk about today. Of course, it's been a lot of things that have gone on. Lil Bronny is going to the NBA. We're going to certainly talk about the new hire at Arkansas, where John Calipari is now the head basketball coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks. The Final Four, both men's and women, just completed. We got to get into that. We certainly got to get into this Caitlin Clark thing. We got to get into this Dawn Staley thing and how South Carolina was disrespected as it relates to Caitlin Clark, but it wasn't her fault. We're also going to talk about this new, everybody wants women's sports to be so great, and they're pushing to try to get a woman to coach men's basketball. And obviously the name that's out there right now is Dawn Staley. I'm going to tell you why that's difficult at best, coming from her point of view. And I know why they're doing all of this, because they want to, she was 38-0. So we'll get into that as well. The NAIA has decided that they will not let transgender men compete with women. And I certainly agree with that as well. We'll talk about all of that and a lot more coming up here in just a moment on the Weekly Sports Magazine. So let's see where, I forgot. The NBA playoffs are right in our grasp. The play-in games start next week. Will the Lakers get out of it? Will Golden State Warriors? It looks like they're going to have to play one another. So we'll see how that plays out as well. So much stuff to talk about. I will tell you, we're going to talk a lot about women's college basketball because personally, I've had enough. Okay? No disrespect to the women and what they do athletically, but I've kind of had enough. All right? So we're going to break a lot of that stuff down. But before we do that, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about let's do this. Well, as we all know, UConn won the men's national championship, made history, second time in a row. The first time this has been done since Florida did it back in 2006, 2007. Congratulations to them. I tell you, I don't think I've been watching the Final Four for a long time, and I don't think I've ever seen a complete domination of a team as far as the men's side is concerned as I saw with UConn. They averaged double-digit wins throughout the entire tournament last year and this year, and it's just simply been it was an amazing run. We now know that their starting center, Klingon, is going to the NBA, and it's going to remain to be seen whether or not they can three-peat. I've heard some interviews by some of the players as of late, and Some they're kind of non-committal about as far as whether or not they're going to go to the NBA, whether or not they're going to jump into the transfer portal. We just don't know right now. But as of late last night, according to CBS Sportsline, the starting center for UConn, after winning his second straight title, Donovan Clingan, has decided that he is definitely going pro. All right. So and he was a dominant force. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So it's going to be tough. It really is. Let's see. The last time the team three-peated was back in the UCLA days. So we don't see that. It's tough enough as it is. So, but congratulations to UConn. I'm going to be honest. I was a doubting Thomas. I just didn't think that they'd do it 2 times in a row. First time that the men's Final Four. I mean, the best 2 teams in the country played against one another. We doubted Purdue. I was one of those teams. Certainly doubting Purdue after, especially last year when they went out in the first round to a 16 seed. But they were on a mission. We saw it a few years ago with Virginia, who had been eliminated by a 16 seed and later came back and won the national championship. But Purdue got all the way to the finals, but they just were not able to get the job done. So you can't be upset about that. But congratulations to them. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was an anticlimactic tournament, to be totally honest. I think the ratings, they got like 14.8 million. The women, by the way, got 18 million. So for the first time in history, the viewership for the women outpaced the men. So maybe women's basketball is coming back, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit as well. So final score was 75-60, and let's give it up to Zach Edey. 37 points, 10 rebounds. A lot of people don't think that his game is going to translate to the NBA. That remains to be seen. We'll see. He's more of a back to the basket center, 7'4", big. The one thing that coaches always told me when I was playing sports is you can't coach height and you can't coach speed. So give me either one of those or both, and I've got a damn good athlete. And right now, him being 7'4", that's pretty darn good. So hats off to him. He was 37-10 in that game, so that's no slouch at all. So again, interesting Final Four. Here's the one complaint. I mean, look, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I had to videotape it. Here on the East Coast, that game didn't start till 9:25. Okay? Now, I'm new to the East Coast. I grew up in the central area of the country, but 9:25, really? Come on. A lot of people that I've met here and I've spoken with, they said the same thing. They had to tape it and watch the game the next morning or before they went to work, because just trying to stay up. I don't think that game was over till like 1 o'clock, 12:30, 1 o'clock, somewhere in there. So, but they got to do better. I think part of the reason that the women got as much viewership as they did, certainly the product, yes, but that game started like at 3 o'clock on Sunday evening. It's a perfect time. I'm not sure why the NCAA men's division decided to move it that late, but from what I understand, it's been that late since 1986. That's when it first starting off that late, but they need to do something about that. Also, like I said, we're going to be basketball down. I do want to tell you that Tiger did make the cut. This is Masters weekend, a place like no other. It's Masters weekend. Tiger made his 24th record cut. Certainly, I don't think anyone was expecting Tiger Woods to win this. Miracles do happen, but I think as far as Tiger Woods is concerned, his winning days are probably done. But he always does he brings a lot of eyeballs to the set. So, and you think about all the money that the current players today earn is in part because of Tiger Woods. So they're always going to have deference to him, and they should always, because you're able to feed your babies and have some left over because of Tiger Woods and what he's done for golf and certainly the majors, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, coming up, let's see, I want to make sure we cover everything else. So in the next segment, we're going to get into this John Calipari thing. Of course, there's been a lot of coaches that have been fired. Calipari wasn't fired, but we'll talk about that here in just a moment. NBA playoffs. I want to make sure I cover this today as well. We are pretty close to the play-in tournament. And let me just bring up it looks like here's the schedule that's out there. It's going to start off, the 10th seed plays the 9th seed. Then the 7th seed plays the 8th seed. And then those two will play 2 out of 3 if I remember correctly. Okay, so let me just tell you about the standings if you're interested in this right now, the way it is, and the playoff picture as we're looking at right now. Both the Warriors and the Lakers are 45 and 35, so they'll play one another for the 9 and 10 spot. Then the winner of that game will play the winner of the Suns and Kings game. All right, as far as the West is concerned. Other teams obviously have solidified their spots. The Nuggets are the number 1 seed. That team will play the 8th seed, the winner of the 8th seed game. And then the Timberwolves will play the winner of the 7th seed game, if I'm making that sense. Also, so they're the 2nd seed. The 3rd seed, the Thunder. 4th seed, Clippers. 5th seed, Mavericks. And 6th seed, Pelicans. On the east side, you've got the Bulls and the Hawks playing one another in the play-in, and the 76ers and the Heat playing one another. Now, the interesting thing about this, of course, many of you all who have followed this show know I'm a 76er fan. Joel Embiid is back, and right now you don't know what's going to happen with the Bucks. Giannis Antetokounmpo is injured. Many people they were concerned about the fact that he may have injured his Achilles, but that came back negative. But certainly his calf is out, so they're saying he's probably diagnosed to be out about 3 weeks. So that's going to be interesting as well. Can the Bucks survive a 7 seed victory if they play the 76ers? Because the Sixers, most people believe that the Sixers will beat the Heat. That's who they'll play. Just giving you the seeding, the Celtics 1, Bucks 2, Knicks 3, Cavaliers 4, Magic 5, and Pacers 6. Okay, so many people believe that it's going to come down to the 76ers and the Celtics, which I would not be surprised because, and look, take your hats off to the Knicks as well. The Knicks have played, excellent basketball. Jalen Brunson has been unbelievable this year as well. It makes you wonder, although Dallas, they do have Kyrie, but man, just think if you would have had Jalen Brunson with Luka Doncic. What a duo that would have been. Okay, so either way, so that's the eastern side. Let's see, the play-in begins April 16th, which is next Tuesday, as a matter of fact, the 16th through the 19th, and then the next weekend we'll know for sure who is in the playoffs, and they'll be on and popping in earnest. So that's the NBA. It ought to be fun. I got to tell you right now, I think it's the Nuggets. If the Nuggets get home court advantage, that is a distinct advantage playing at home in the Mile High. They even have the 58-20 written on the court. That's a psychological reminder. I don't know that anyone else can beat them. I really don't. Everybody's healthy. The Joker is playing unbelievable basketball. He's going to get his next MVP, whether you like it or not. It took me a long time to get on board, but the guy's playing excellent basketball. So if I had to pick a team, they always like to say, would you pick the Nuggets or the field? And common sense would say you pick the field in this case, but if I were a betting man, I'd probably lay some money on the Nuggets. I really would. I don't think anyone can beat them in a 7-game series because, number one, you're going to have to play 4 of those games in Denver. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Everybody that has went there and played, they say the same thing. It's not easy playing in that atmosphere. And so it can be done, but if you're looking at who in that field you think could do it, could the Mavericks catch lightning in a bottle? They've been playing very good basketball as of late, Doncic and Kyrie. But can they catch lightning in a bottle? I don't think so. The Thunder, maybe. See, here's the thing with the Thunder. They say Gilgeous-Alexander has been playing great basketball, but the thing about the Thunder is they're young. And it's one of those situations, the NBA playoffs is one of those things where the youngins have got to pay their dues, so to speak. It's not an easy ride. So the Pelicans, I don't see. Timberwolves, maybe, but I think a week or so ago, the Timberwolves played the Nuggets, and I think that was a couple of nights ago, and they lost. I just don't see anybody in the West beating them. The Clippers, maybe the enigma that are the Clippers. Are we ready to say that? I'm not. So right now, I've got the Nuggets. Let's go to the East. Who in the East could beat them? Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Philadelphia, Tyrese Maxey has been playing great basketball. We don't know how well this is the first time that Joel Embiid has been basically healthy. So we don't know how healthy he's going to be. But if he's healthy, and I'd love to see him and Doncic match up. Tyrese Maxey has been playing great basketball. I mean, he's dropping 40s and 50s everywhere. So that's a possibility, but they've got to get by the Celtics, a team that lives and dies by the three-point shot. Those are potentially the only 2 teams that could come out of that particular era side of the bracket. And if it's, I would give the 76ers a better chance of matching up. But wouldn't you love to see Doncic and Embiid? Now, the last time the 76ers went on the road to play in Denver, Embiid didn't play. So if it's the playoffs, he's got to play. So we're looking forward to that. I could see the 76ers beating the Celtics. I really could. All right. They're determined whether or not they're on or off. And you live by the 3, you die by the 3. So there you go. Either way, that's the quick wrap up of things that are happening. I think I've covered everything that I need to cover. Coming back, there's been a seismic shift in the college basketball landscape, and that tilt is towards Fayetteville, Arkansas, and the Arkansas Razorbacks. And certainly from my perspective, it was a shock. And it shocked the college basketball world as a whole. So we'll talk about all of that stuff here in just a moment. You're listening to the Weekly Sports Magazine. I'm Dynamic Dave on JoyNetRadio.com.
Hi, I'm David W. Coleman, host of Black Focus Radio and the Weekly Sports Magazine. We here at JoyNetRadio.com would like to thank you for all the love and support you've given us. Our goal is to keep you inspired and informed daily with quality programming from gospel music, news, talk, and sports. Log on to JoyNetRadio.com for the program lineup, and while there, be sure to make a donation. Then download our app and carry us anywhere in the world. Please continue to spread the word word about JoinedRadio.com. And if you are an entrepreneur or have an upcoming event or you'd like to start a show, let the professional writers and producers here at JoinedRadio.com help you get the word out. Call me at 615-554-0568 for more details. In the meantime, stay informed and inspired daily right here on JoinedRadio.com.
David W. Coleman here for Coleman's Dynamic Rib Rub and Rib Nuts. Go to ribrub.com, that's RIBBRUBB.com right now, and stock up on the best dry marinades for baking, grilling, and smoking your favorite meats. 3 great flavors, hot and spicy, original, and scorching. Try them at your next cookout and you will shout, bake it, grill it, shake it, oh yeah! Only one place to get Coleman's Dynamic products, that's ribrub.com. Easy to order, and I'll ship direct to you or to friends and family anywhere in the United States. While on the site, be sure to check out other great items, especially the rib nuts. Who'da thunk it? Peanuts sauteed in a barbecue marinade? That's just crazy good. Get them at ribrub.com right now, along with other great recipes. That's ribrub.com. If you don't like my rib rub or rib nuts, I'll give you money back. Do it today. That's Coleman's Dynamic Products at ribrub.com.
Listen.
Did you miss Dr. Ernest Gill from UT San Antonio?
When you're making $455 million off these student athletes and all you can come up with is $5,000, John Calipari makes $8 million a year, and his players are going to get $5,000 a year. The majority of these teams were white men and white males and females. Would this be happening? And I would say no, because their families wouldn't let it happen. But we're letting our kids get pimped.
Join the Weekly Sports Magazine every Saturday, 8 to 10 a.m. on JoinedRadio.com.
Welcome back to the Weekly Sports Magazine. I'm Dynamic Dave. Coming up later in the show, I'm going to tell you why Dawn Staley would not be successful as a basketball coach. And I'm also going to tell you why Caitlin Clark's eclipsing the scoring title is a farce. I'm also going to tell you why the 38-0 undefeated records that women continue to put up, I'm going to tell you why that is not equal to men's basketball. All right. But before we do that, speaking of basketball, there was a lot of news that took place, usually in the Final Four. Most college basketball coaches go to the Final Four because many of them who are on the outs at their current position are looking for jobs. There are some who don't have jobs who are looking for jobs, and all things are happening. Of course, the Arkansas Razorbacks, early on, we kind of knew, if you're a Razorback fan, that their head coach was going to be going. And a lot of it the Musselman was going to be out of there. And a lot of it had to do with him. I think he wanted to leave. I think he was tired of the Arkansas Razorbacks BS. All right. You consider this season was the worst season of 2 Final Fours on the Sweet 16. I mean, has Arkansas gotten to the point now where they are not happy with those things like that? They believe, and I think a lot of Arkansas fans believe, that they deserve to be in the Final Four every year. Certainly, Arkansas has some pedigree, but they don't have that kind of pedigree. All right, that might be changing. And there are a lot of things changing on the Hill at Arkansas. We first were surprised that they brought back Bobby Petrino. So Arkansas is trying to make a move, and of course, the NIL is driving a lot of this. From what I understand, there's a lot of money. The Tyson family, the chicken people, they're putting a lot of money into the Arkansas NIL program. So that's driving a lot of changes. And of course, if you've been living under a rock, you do understand that the NIL is what's driving a lot of these kids now, which I don't have a problem with that at all. Some people are upset about it. They don't want these kids to make money. Of course, I've talked a lot about these coaches being upset because they are not able to control these players the way they did at one point. And it used to be that if you wanted to transfer to a school, you had to sit out a year, although a coach could quit his job and go to another school the same year. All right. And then, of course, you couldn't go to the same conference. That coach could dictate where you could go. You couldn't transfer inside the SEC. You had to go outside the SEC. There used to be all kinds of rules and regulations for players. All of that has gone away now. All right. So that brings us back to John Calipari. I'll be totally honest with you. I didn't particularly care for John Calipari. Look, I'll be totally honest with you. And by the way, since we're talking about basketball, let me do a quick shout out to the Little Rock Central High Tigers men and women's basketball team. Both of them won the state title, and hopefully now we can get the football team back on track, and that would be great as well. But I wasn't a big fan of John Calipari. When he was at UMass, of course, that Marcus Camby team was a heck of a team. A lot of people don't remember that. Then he went to Memphis, had Derrick Rose, went to the Final Four. I guess I didn't like him because during that time that UMass team was challenging the Arkansas Razorbacks and Nolan Richardson back in the day. But he goes to Memphis. He's never been a big X's and O's coach. He depends on talent. They had a chance to win the Final Four that year, and they ended up, one of the problems that Memphis had with that particular team is that they didn't shoot free throws, and he basically said he wasn't worried about free throws. He was just that arrogant, thinking that they were going to win regardless. And sure enough, it came down to free throws, and they end up losing the game. Then, of course, he leaves Memphis and goes to Kentucky. He's there for 15 years. He's probably put more players in the NBA than any other coach in modern history. I think the number that people threw around was 35, but he was rarely successful in the NCAA tournament. And certainly that upset the Kentucky faithful because they are the blue bloods of college basketball, and they felt like that, hey, we ought to be in the Final Four every year, at least challenging. It was surprising that in the last 4 years, the Kentucky Wildcats have not won an NCAA college basketball game. But he was able to bring in some great players over the years. And, I mean, you just go down the list. I would argue that you look at a lot of the teams in the NBA, there's probably a Kentucky player on that team. And John Calipari, I kind of started coming around to him because he had a different philosophy than most. And that philosophy was, hey, I want to win, but I'm building men to be millionaires. He talked about that a lot. He was building men to be millionaires. So his job, in his opinion, was to get guys in the NBA. Unfortunately, the Kentucky faithful didn't believe that. They felt like he should be trying to get to the Final Four. And I agree with him. Your job is to win the Final Four, not to get the guys in the NBA. But you're splitting hairs there. A lot of times, he would bring in a set of, and in a way, before the NIL, Calipari was already bringing in freshmen, starting them, and they all going to the NBA the next year. You're seeing that a lot now with the portal situation, is that these guys go to a team, they're successful, they go to the NBA, or they jump in the portal and go somewhere else. But he was kind of like the architect of that, to be totally honest, sans the portal and sans the NIL. So, unfortunately, you can't build a championship team with freshmen. And I used to say all the time, when he'd have this 5-star freshman here, and I would tell people all the time, you give me 5 seniors, and I'll take the best 5 freshmen you have in the country, and those 5 seniors will whoop that butt every time. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And we saw that. We've seen that bear itself out as some of these smaller schools who have senior and upperclassmen give some of these teams a run for their money that we hadn't been seeing in a long time. All right? So now the Kentucky faithful got upset. They felt like that they weren't holding up their Kentucky legacy the way it should have, and they began to grumble. Mitch Barnhart, who was the athletic director of John Calipari, there was always rumors about the fact that he was on the outs. They didn't like each other. They coexisted, yada, 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 whatever the case may be. Many of the fans you would see on message boards that they felt like Calipari should have been gone years ago. 15 years to stay at a place like Kentucky is a long time. And so after the Final Four, you began to hear rumors. And of course, fans wanted him out. And the next thing you knew is that there were rumors about him leaving Kentucky and going to Arkansas. Now, the problem that Kentucky had is that they couldn't fire him. Well, theoretically, they could have, but they didn't want to fire him because he had a $33 million buyout. Okay? It's kind of like what Jimbo Fisher had, that $75 million that he's living on after he left, after Texas A&M got rid of him. So Kentucky wasn't going to do that. So many believe that it was Calipari who decided that he had worn out his welcome and he was ready to go. Now, don't know how Arkansas came into play. I'm still waiting to hear that story because I'm sure there are a lot of teams out there who would have loved to have Calipari as their head coach. So how Arkansas came into play, don't really know the answer to that yet. And the other thing is, did Calipari decide to go to Kentucky to spite Kentucky because he knew that they were going to play them every day? Okay? I mean, every year. And they were in the same conference. So that's a good question right now. But either way, news started coming out earlier this week that John Calipari was going to be the new head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks. And this would clear Kentucky of all their contractual obligations, that $33 million buyout. And it was you started seeing it online, and people didn't believe it. I was on a talk show in Little Rock, and J.C. Love on his show, and he didn't believe it. He was stunned, and sure enough, John Calipari is the new head basketball coach, taking the place of Eric Musselman, who went on to USC, which I think he wanted to get out of Arkansas. From what I understand, the Razorback alumni has committed $5 million for NIL. I think Musselman, that was one of his complaints, that he wasn't getting that type of money. Look, if you're gonna dance today in college basketball and college sports as a whole, you're gonna have to have NIL. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's not gonna change. So there's been $5 million allocated just for John Calipari, from what I understand, to use in the NIL to draw people to Arkansas. Now here's the thing. John Calipari clearly is a heck of a recruiter. Okay? There's a kid in Arizona who was thinking about going to Kentucky, who plays for Kentucky, plays for Arizona, and now word is that he might end up in Arkansas. He's, is it Bolo? I think his last name. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but he's a 7'2" center. Okay, y'all remember Oscar Sheboy for Kentucky? That boy was bad. So he may end up in Arkansas, but more importantly, if I remember the numbers correctly, Calipari had 6 of the top 20 recruits that were either already going to Kentucky or thinking about going to Kentucky. How many of those guys now will follow Calipari and become Razorbacks? Now, Arkansas doesn't have a slouch. They're not a slouch as far as their basketball history. We know about the national championship in '94. Of course, then they went back to the Final Four in '95. We know about the Final Four runs that the Razorbacks had under Sidney Moncrief and Eddie Sutton, U.S. Reed, some of those great players, Joe Klein. Arkansas is not a slouch, but they ain't no Kentucky. Let's be realistic about that. So now the basketball landscape has changed. And if Calipari does what he does at Kentucky, will Arkansas fans just be content to say, hey, at least we competing? Well, you were competing with Musselman. The question is, can he get you back to the Final Four? Is he still going to have the mentality of, well, I'm just trying to get these kids into the league? If he still has that mentality, and a lot of people are asking, who won Many people say both sides won. Kentucky won because now, and we're going to talk about their replacement here in a moment, but they're saying Kentucky won and Arkansas won and Calipari won. I don't think I've ever heard you could have a three-way winner in a situation like this. But I really think, and Arkansas fans right now are crowing. They are excited. And certainly, look, I'm a Razorback fan. I grew up in Arkansas. I'm a little excited too. You know, Calipari's going to have to grow on me a little bit because, as I told you, I'm not a big Calipari fan. Never have been. But, you know, if he's bringing success to the Razorbacks, that'll be fantastic. It really will. So we'll have to wait and see. Look, I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I went out and looked at the 25-1. Okay, the way too early 25-1. And if you're not a sports fan, you don't know what I'm talking about. So every year, even after the college football playoffs, even after the Final Four, the last game, I don't know, they've been doing this for quite some time. Someone rushes to put out the top 25 for the next year, plus one. So they put out the top 26 teams, okay? So I'll admit, I actually went out and looked at the top 25-1, expecting to see Arkansas somewhere in there. They weren't, because we don't even know who's going to be on that squad yet. But I guarantee you, they're going to get there, because he's going to bring in some recruits, and certainly now with the transfer portal, because we know now that you better have some upperclassmen to play. All right, freshmen are great. It's the same thing with the Thunder. Those are young cats. They're going to be great if they stay together. But you need some steely veterans to make sure that when things get rough, then they know how to handle it because they've been there before. So now, with the transfer portal, you got $5 million in NIL money to throw around. You can go out and get you some, and there are probably some kids out there now who want to play for Calipari, who are already playing. Then you bring in those superstar freshmen. Man, you got something on your hands up there in Fayetteville. You've got something on your hands, bro. I'm going to tell you. And you can't get upset. Y'all didn't want him. You know, sometimes one man's garbage is another man's treasure. And y'all, and look, I guarantee you that Kentucky fans are not happy with their new hire. I guarantee you. Okay? In fact, I know they're not happy. Their new hire is Mark Pope. He played on the 1996 National Championship team. He was the head coach at BYU. You go from Calipari, who was a master recruiter, won Final Four, brought a championship to your team, to a guy who has never won an NCAA game. Hello? When they start saying, well, you know, he's an excellent X's and O's coach. Well, there are a whole lot of people out there that are X's and O's coaches that are excellent. Okay? See, Kentucky thought that because we're Kentucky, all we got to do is call and we'll get anybody we want. Okay? First they wanted Hurley from UConn. Why would Hurley go to Kentucky? Look, he just dominated the NCAA. UConn is the new dynasty of this generation. Why would he go to Kentucky? He turned him down. You know, head basketball coach Nate Odom from Alabama, he turned him down. Okay, Bryce Drew from Baylor, he turned him down. Okay, Billy Donovan, who's coaching in the NBA, he turned him down. See, here's the thing. Right now, why would you, if you are coaching in the NBA, why would you even think about going back to college with all this chaos that's going on with this NIL and all this stuff? That would be stupid. Why would you do that? So all of those coaches turned them down. Wow. They're upset. So when you say who won, all three of them won, I got to say Arkansas got the best deal out of this. Look, I will go out on a limb right now and say that the Arkansas Razorbacks will have a better year next year than Kentucky will. I will say that. Even though Calipari is not an X's and O's coach, and Kentucky got an X's and O's coach. Okay? I will go out on a limb and say Arkansas will have a better year. How about that? That's funny. That's crazy, man. It really is crazy. It really is. Okay. All right, so let's do this. Coming up next hour, we're going to spend the whole next hour talking about women's college basketball, so y'all stick and stay for that. In the next segment, I want to talk a little bit about the NBA draft and J.J. McCarthy. I put it out that J.J. McCarthy is like a wishbone quarterback. I'll tell you what I mean by that here in just a moment. You're listening to the Weekly Sports Magazine. I'm Dynamic Dave on JoyNetRadio.com.
Ladies, are you looking for high-quality, natural products for your skin and soul? Skintentional is for you. We feature handcrafted, luxurious, natural baths and body care products. At Skintentional, we firmly believe that self-care should be an intentional and enjoyable experience. We strive to infuse every product with a sense of fun and purpose. Crafting each item with love and care, we take pride in selecting only the finest natural ingredients. From luscious shea butter to revitalizing essential oils, every element is carefully chosen to protect, restore, and enhance your skin's natural beauty. We provide skincare specifically with you in mind. Try our soaps, scrubs, and facial oils for children and adults. Skintentional has something for the whole family, including the man in your life. Self-care should be an intentional and joyous experience for all. Go to skintentional.com right now for great discounts and begin experiencing what skincare products should be.
Bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah, at RealRub.com. Holman's Dynamic Pepper Juice is lighting fires around the country. It's the new product from RealRub.com. Use it on meats and vegetables. Add it to your gumbos and greens for an extra punch. Made with all natural ingredients, Coleman's Dynamic Pepper Juice will enhance the flavors of your favorite recipes. Order today on RibRub.com. And while there, be sure to check out some of our other great products. It's developed with love and care using the best all-natural ingredients with no GMOs or preservatives. From snacks to seasonings, Coleman's Dynamic Products has something for everyone. Bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah, at RealRub.com.
LeBron James is the greatest player we've seen this generation. You have to be careful when you start saying, and so, well, he wasn't as good as Michael, or he wasn't as good as Magic. Every generation you get that. You begin to sound like that old man that lives down the street, and every time you walk on his yard or you even walk by his yard, he's on the porch and he's got that little crooked finger. He's like, get off my lawn! Get off my lawn! Join me Saturday mornings at 8 for the Weekly Sports Magazine on JoyNetRadio.com. Get off my lawn!
All right, welcome back to the show. Again, shout out to the Little Rock Central Tigers men's and women's basketball team for winning the state championship. And by the way, a word is that the Little Rock Central Tigers had one of the toughest schedules in the nation. So went undefeated, by the way. So congratulations to them. So this segment, we want to talk a little bit about the NFL. Okay. Draft is in 2 weeks. Everybody's going crazy. A lot of misinformation is out there. I am not buying some of the stuff that people are saying. I happen to believe that there's at least one guy that's going to go a lot higher than people think, and I think that there's one guy who's going to go a lot lower than people think. Okay, and I want to let me pull this up because Here's something that I posted on my wall. If you haven't seen it, if you get an opportunity, I believe I posted it. Let's see here. Oh, here it is. Because see, there's a lot of talk about J.J. McCarthy. If you've been following along, here's a guy that. Let me ask you a question. I wonder if Michael Penix would have won the national title, would we hear the talk about J.J. McCarthy be the same? I would argue no. Okay, so here's a meme that I posted. Caleb Williams, Heisman Trophy winner. Jaden Daniels, Heisman Trophy winner. Drake May, 5,000 total yards and 45 TDs as a 20-year-old. By the way, we're going to talk about Drake May here in a moment because there's a prominent NFL player who said that he's the type of kid that'll get you fired. And then the last one on this list is J.J. McCarthy. I know he didn't do much, but I promise you he can. That's the little quote after J.J. McCarthy. Now, here's why I'm saying that. Here's a guy who I think is nothing more than a wishbone quarterback. And some of you all may not know what I'm talking about. You remember the wishbone. Oh, I know. Some of you all don't remember the wishbone because you all weren't around. There are still some high schools that are running the wishbone. So typically, the wishbone, and if you go back and you look at this Michigan squad, their offensive line and their running game was boss. Killed Washington up front. Okay? Now, Michael Penix didn't play the best game, but, I mean, everything was put on his shoulders. He was getting no help at all. So, a wishbone quarterback has to do one or two things. He has to run the ball, or he needs to hand it off. He rarely passes. I don't know why Jamil Holloway comes to mind. He used to play for Oklahoma. Of course, you know, Texas, back in the day, they used to run the wishbone a lot as well. So you probably ask me, well, what does that have to do with J.J. McCarthy? Because Michigan didn't run the wishbone. They ran a pro-style offense. No, they didn't. They ran a running game. In other words, they played to their strength. Their strength was their running game, not their quarterback. If their quarterback had any talent whatsoever, then don't you think that Harbaugh would have allowed him to exhibit that talent? Basically, all he had to do was run the ball, hand it off, and make a throw every now and then. That's the exact same thing wishbone quarterbacks did. Hand it off, run the ball, and make a throw every now and then. And if it wasn't there, throw it away. That's the year J.J. McCarthy had. I know a lot of people don't want to talk about it. So why people are saying that this guy is going to go in the top of the draft, and I'm looking right now at my good friend Colin Lindsley, great Blue North Draft Report. He has J.J. McCarthy going number 4 to Minnesota. If Minnesota takes J.J. McCarthy, they're done. Okay? You need a quarterback right now to come in that's going to play. J.J. McCarthy is not ready to play. I've said all along that this guy can't read defenses. He's a system quarterback. So you're actually going to draft J.J. McCarthy number 4. Let me just run through and tell you what's happening here. Chicago, Caleb Williams. I think you'd be crazy not to draft him. Washington, Jalen Daniels. New England, Drake May. I don't think this is going to happen. A lot of people are suggesting that New England should trade out of that pick and stockpile some picks. Okay? But they're saying Drake May. Here, they think Arizona is going to trade with Minnesota. Minnesota has 2 first-round draft picks, and here Minnesota is going to take J.J. McCarthy. Here's what I'm afraid, because I think, well, let me go ahead. I'll tell you what I think in a moment. L.A. Chargers, Marvin Harrison, they need receivers. Giants, Malik Neighbors. Tennessee, Joe Alt, that would be a good pick, I think. Atlanta, Dallas Turner, who is an edge rusher. Chicago, Rome Odunze, another wide receiver, which I think would be great. Number 10, the Jets will take Fuaga, which is an offensive lineman. And with the trade by Minnesota, the Arizona Cardinals fall back and they take a receiver, Brian Thomas out of LSU. Denver, Bo Nix at number 12. And here I disagree with him. Brock Bowers, who the Las Vegas Raiders would take Brock Bowers at number 13. No. Raiders drafted Meyer 2 years ago as a tight end, who was a pretty darn good tight end. Now look, don't get me wrong, Brock Bowers is a bad boy. Whomever gets him is going to be really happy with it. The Raiders are not going to take Brock Bowers at 13. The Raiders want a quarterback. And if he's available right there, I think the Raiders are going to take Michael Penix Jr., who is not even in the top 25 on this list. As a matter of fact, where does he have Michael Penix? He has Michael Penix going to the Vegas Raiders at 44. Penix will not be there at 44. Okay? You got to take him at 13. So that's where they have him. So I'm saying all this because obviously we're talking about J.J. McCarthy. Let me just quickly go out to CBS Sportsline and look at their mock drafts, just one or two of them, and see where they've got it. Top three are basically the same, and of course they've got one of these guys, Chris Trapasso, has J.J. McCarthy going number 3. I'm gonna tell you like this, bro. You draft J.J. McCarthy at number 3, you're a damn fool. You're a damn fool. I just don't see that happening. Now, both of these guys do have Michael Penix Jr. going to the Raiders at number 13, which I would love that. Of course, you all know I'm a Raiders fan. Okay? But J.J. McCarthy, that's just not going to happen. It just isn't. It's just not going to happen. So we'll see. But y'all go and get him. Go and get him. Now, one of the other things I want to talk about just a couple of minutes before we go to the top of the hour, and then we're going to get into some women's college sports, because I got to address these things. I just got to do it, okay? Merrill Hodge, who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he goes into a long diatribe. He says, Drake May is a kind of player that will get you fired. And, of course, you know, throughout the whole football season, I track the stats of all of these so-called quarterbacks. Drake May, Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, all of these quarterbacks that they were talking about that was going to be at the top of the draft. And I told you all then that this guy was erratic. He was not tops in a lot of the stats, but you know, he was one of their chosen boys. You know, the media has a way of choosing certain players they anoint them before they bust a grape, so to speak. And Drake May was one of them. Last year, he came out like gangbusters, tailed off, and then this year he was erratic. And Merrill Hodge think that he's not the type, talks about his footwork, he goes into detail, he really rips him. But there are a lot of people out there who love this Drake May guy. Just be aware of that as you move forward. Okay? All right, we're going to take the top of the hour break. Coming up, we're going to talk about the women's Final Four. We're going to talk about this overhype with Caitlin Clark. We're going to talk about, and there were a lot of people on national radio saying that Dawn Staley should have been given the job at Kentucky. We're going to talk about the competition as it relates to men's and women's basketball and why it's not equal. All of that stuff. Yeah, I'm going to tick a few people off, but get over it. We'll be back in a moment. It's the Weekly Sports Magazine. I'm Dynamic Dave on JoyNetRadio.com.
Ladies, Ladies, are you looking for high quality, natural products for your skin and soul? Skintentional is for you. We feature handcrafted, luxurious, natural baths and body care products. At Skintentional, we firmly believe that self-care should be an intentional and enjoyable experience. We strive to infuse every product with a sense of fun and purpose. Crafting each item with love and care, we take pride in selecting only the finest natural ingredients. From luscious shea butter to revitalizing essential oils, every element is carefully chosen to protect, restore, and enhance your skin's natural beauty. We provide skincare specifically with you in mind. Try our soaps, scrubs, and facial oils for children and adults. Skintentional has something for the whole family, including the man in your life. Self-care should be an intentional and joyous experience for all. Go to skintentional.com right now for great discounts and begin experiencing what skincare products should be.
Bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah, at BriaRub.com. Holman's Dynamic Pepper Juice is lighting fires around the country. It's the new product from RibRub.com. Use it on meats and vegetables. Add it to your gumbos and greens for an extra punch. Made with all natural ingredients, Holman's Dynamic Pepper Juice will enhance the flavors of your favorite recipes. Order today on RibRub.com. And while there, be sure to check out some of our other great products. It's developed with love and care using the best all-natural ingredients with no GMOs or preservatives. From snacks to seasonings, Coleman's Dynamic Products has something for everyone. Bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah, at BriaRub.com.
LeBron James is the greatest player we've seen this generation. You have to be careful when you start saying, and so, well, he wasn't as good as Michael, or he wasn't as good as Magic. Every generation you get that. You begin to sound like that old man that lives down the street, and every time you walk on his yard, or you even walk by his yard, he's on the porch, and he's got that little crooked finger. He's like, get off my lawn! Get off my lawn!
Join me Saturday mornings at 8 for the weekly sports magazine on JoinetRadio.com.
Get off my lawn!
It's time for the weekly sports page with the dynamic David Coleman. Stay tuned for thrills, chills, and yes, spills. Oh yeah, and a whole lot of other great stuff. Call 855-525-5683. Tweet your questions at Dynamic Sports PA or Facebook. Drop a line on Dynamic Weekly Sports Show. Sit back, relax, and groove while Dynamic drops sports in your ear hole.
Nebraska wins the game on the final play of the contest. Oh, baby! How about that? Jacked up indeed.
Are you kidding me?
They're not gonna keep him off the field tonight. Holy cow!
Now here's Dynamic David Coleman.
All right, welcome back to the second hour of the weekly sports magazine. We are so glad to be back. Make sure you share, like, and subscribe on our YouTube page. We'll post this show. You'll see the show right after you hear the show on Joinet Radio, which begins at 8 to 10 a.m. On JoinetRadio.com as well. Don't forget to support our sponsor, Skintentional. That's my daughter-in-law's business. It's doing great. And, of course, RibRub.com. We got some new products and some updates out there that you'll like. Father's Day is right around the corner. Let's go ahead and get those gift boxes in, or those orders in, so we can get Dad a gift box as well. So we talked a little bit in the first hour about the Final Four, the men's Final Four. This hour we're going to talk about the women's Final Four. And I will tell you, this is the first time that we've ever done this, but I think it's important because I'll be totally honest, I got a little ill last week, over the last couple of weeks, hearing all of this hype and hubbub about women's college basketball. Not that I disrespect it, but it just irritated me. Okay? It really did. It irritated me. So I decided that I wanted to make sure that I set the record straight, that I wouldn't get caught up in the hype, because there was a lot of hype. So before we do that, let's talk a little bit about the NAIA prohibiting trans athletes from competing in women's sports. Okay, let's do that here, and then we'll get into college basketball. The NAI has prohibited women's trans athletes from competing in women's sports, and the reason I'm bringing it up, the ESPN reporter Katie Barnes said Tuesday they didn't believe that there was enough scientific evidence to support that transgender women would have an advantage over biological women in sports. Now, do I have to tell you what transgender women are? Transgender women are men who believe they're women. We've talked about the physiology process, the story here on this show ad infinitum. And just quickly one more time. If you go out on the Weekly Sports Magazine wall, you will see a video. Okay. Now, let me just say this. If transgender was equal, okay, why don't you see transgender women who think they're men competing with men? You'll get that here in just a moment. But transgender men, well, men who think they are women competing against women, they do that all the time. I've seen men who are playing, I think this guy was like 6'6", he thought it was a girl. He's out there dominating these little short women. How do you say that that's equal? How do you say that that's fair? So this lady made this stupid argument. I think it depends on what you mean by support that. From my reporting, the reality is that from a scientific perspective, we know that there are differences in the sexes, and we know the differences do tend to lead to athletic performance differences as well. However, when we look at a broad-based restrictions at all levels of sports, it's very challenging to say that scientifically that is supported in all cases. Let's start with puberty. That is the dumbest stuff I've ever heard in my life. And I want to applaud the NAIA for doing banning. The Olympics has done it as well. But I was going to tell you about this video, right? This video I posted on my wall, is a track meet. And you all know I've used track and field as the defining facts as it relates to the difference in athletic prowess between men and women. Because track and field is the only sport that they run the same things. They do the same things. The only thing that's really different in track and field is the women do the heptathlon and the men do the decathlon. Why is that? They won 100 meters, the 200 meters, the 1500 meters, whatever. All of them do the same thing. And when you look at you compare the times are significantly different. The men are faster than the women because of physiology. So you're telling me that a man who pretends to be a woman can now run track the 100 meters for women? He's going to win every time. Let's not be stupid. Let's not be stupid. But that video that I posted, they have these, I don't know what they call it, but they have 2 men and 2 women running the 1500 meter relay. All right. Typically what happens, the women run the first and third leg, the men run the second and fourth leg. For whatever reasons, this particular team, and I believe it was Switzerland, decided that they would switch it up. They would put the men on the early legs because that way they would get a lead, and then they would have a woman to anchor the relay. It was a relay race. She got the baton and she was 10 to 15 yards ahead of everybody else. By the time they got to the second turn, she had been walked down by the Americans. By the time they got to the home stretch, remember she started off first. She ended up being 5th in the race. Why is that? Because those men were more physically dominant than she was. Okay? That's just a fact. So we need to stop this silliness. Okay? We need to stop this silliness about men and women competing with one another. Which brings me to Caitlin Clark. You know, Caitlin Clark has been the toast of the town, especially in the white media. And I will tell you that I know, let me just tell you this. Here are 4 women that would smoke Caitlin Clark. I know I watched her and they let her get away with a lot of stuff. Maya Moore was 150-4. That was her career record. She won 2 national titles, 4-time All-American. Shamika Holtzclaw, which I saw, who played for Tennessee. Maya Moore played for UConn. 3 national titles, 2-time Player of the Year. Cheryl Swoops, Texas Tech. Averaged 35 points, 1993 tournament, and led Texas Tech to a national title. Cheryl Miller, 3-time All-American, 2-time national championship, 3,000 points with little or no 3-pointers. Hello? But Caitlin Clark was the toast of the town. Shamika Holtzclaw would smoke her butt. But here's the thing that really annoys me. While Pearl Clark's basketball career unfolded far away from the national spotlight, there was no keeping the small-town girl out of rural South Carolina from the record books. The sharpshooting Moore was a scoring machine for Francis Marion College. She notched 4,061 points during her collegiate career, a mark that still stands 5 decades later. The 4-time AIAW Small College All-American averaged over 30 points per game in leading Marion to postseason play 4 consecutive years. Now look, I'm not trying to take anything from Caitlin Clark. She's a pretty darn good player. Is she a dominant player? That remains to be seen, because here's what we know. She got shut down. Now, she came out on fire in the national championship game. She came out on fire, bro. But she got shut down by a young lady who she had disrespected the year before. Because, you know, it was Iowa who knocked South Carolina out of the national championship race last year. And there was the young lady that was covering, that Caitlin Clark was guarding, you know, that young lady, she was disrespecting her. She kind of waved her hand at her. Totally disrespected her. Totally disrespected her. So now we're beginning to see the warts. And you're even seeing some of the NBA players. Here's what annoyed me about the national championship game. Dawn Staley won it. South Carolina won it. Okay? But you know what? At the end of that game, because I watched it just for this purpose, at the end of that game, you know who they decided to put the camera on? It wasn't Dawn Staley, the black coach, who was 38-0. It was Caitlin Clark. Even people noticed how, I think for the first time in history, that they were focusing on the losing team. Remember last year when LSU won, the president even got in hot water because we're going to invite Caitlin Clark. Wait a minute, they've never invited the losing team to the White House. Okay, that just doesn't happen. Okay? So what was going on here? How could that be possible? So I found it interesting that they would do some stupid stuff like that, but it was clear that the national media, especially ESPN, they had a national agenda. And that agenda was to push, number one, women's basketball, and number two, push Caitlin Clark. It was clear. It was obvious. And even when you listen to the announcers, they all wanted Caitlin Clark to win. There was no doubt about it. Okay? There was no doubt about it. And I think it turned a lot of people off. I know it turned me off. It was amazing to me how they did that. And there were even some white players who admitted how they were disrespecting Dawn Staley in South Carolina. they wanted Caitlin Clark to win so bad. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. So that brings us to South Carolina. And one of the things that I was going to look up, because, I want to take my hats off to Dawn Staley. They did a great job. They finished the job that they should have won last year. Many people thought that they should have won it last year, but they didn't. And it's not her fault, but going 38-0 undefeated is tough in any respect, okay? But I'm really annoyed about what is happening. They're trying to conflate both men's and women's basketball as if they're one and the same, okay? And they're not. They're not. I'm going to show you here in just a moment. Okay. So, guy to the size of, let me see if this is going to tell me what I need. So, the WNBA basketball sizes. Okay, here we are. The standard basketball size used in college basketball for men and women is the same size that is used in both the NBA, 29.5. Size 7 for men and 28.5 inches size for women. The ball must be inflated. So there's a whole inch difference in the women's basketball and the men's basketball. And you say, well, Dave, why does it make a difference? Well, if it didn't make a difference, why do they have different sizes? I'm telling you that all things are not equal. Okay? Let me ask you another question. Because a lot of people have been saying that Caitlin Clark could play in the NBA. Okay? Watch this. I'm here to debunk a lot of this jive that went on last week. Caitlin Clark is 6 foot, right? Let's do it together. 6 foot NBA guards. Okay. Now, number one, I don't see any woman being able to compete in the NBA if all things are being equal. Okay. But here are ranking the NBA's greatest guards ever under 6 foot. Brevin Knight, Spud Webb, DJ Augustine, JJ Barrera. Hello? Y'all remember those guys? Ty Lawson. Hello? Muggsy Bogues. He wasn't even 6 foot. Avery Johnson. Michael Adams. I'm just going down the list. Isaiah Thomas. The recent one. Dana Barrows. Hello? Terrell Brandon. Slater Martin, whoever he is. He's an old guy. Damon Stoudemire. Calvin Murphy. Somebody that they don't mention on this list is Isaiah Thomas. That played on the 76 national championship team. By the way, the last men's team to ever go undefeated. Which brings me to another question. Why is it that there haven't been any other men's teams that were undefeated? The last one was 1976, and that was Indiana. Why is that? What do you think? And why is it that there have been so many women's teams to go undefeated in the last 10 years? I'm proving a point here. Hang on a minute. Women's basketball teams, let's say undefeated. And I'm doing this for a purpose. Okay, I could have done this. I've already looked this up, but I wanted to do it for a purpose. So this is what I do. Okay. This is what I do. Let's see. Let's do that. So there have been 10 undefeated women's basketball national champions. I just told you it hadn't been one in men since 1976. That was the Indiana Hoosiers. Isaiah Thomas was a starting guard on there. But there have been 10 women. In 85 and 86, the Texas Longhorns were 34-0. In 94 and 95, UConn was 34-0. 97-98, Vols 39-0. 2001, Huskies 39-0. 08-09, Huskies 39-0. 09-10, Huskies 39-0. So the Huskies went 2 years in a row where they were undefeated. Now, I will tell you that I was making this argument on my show then that I'm about to make right now. The Baylor Bears in 2011, they went 40-0. UConn again in 2012 and 13, they went 40-0. Now, let me ask you a question. Why has there been more undefeated women's teams? Let's say within just the last 25 years, there have been 5 different teams. And there has not been an undefeated team in the men's division since 1976. Why is that? Now, I know some of y'all are going to take this, I'm just trying to crap on the women's game. No, I'm not. I think they play great basketball. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Look, I'm a Pat Head Summit fan. In fact, I got an autographed basketball with her. Had the pleasure of interviewing her a couple of times. Okay? But here's why you have so many women's teams that are undefeated. Because you don't have that talent across the country that you have in the men's team. See, the men's game has evolved to the point where there's talent all across the country. Right now, what is happening in the women's game is that you've got teams that can stockpile players. Okay? There were only 2 or 3 teams that could have won the national title in women's game. This year, there was only 2 that could have won it, I think, in the men's game. But overall, when you look at the history of the NCAA tournament, you see lower seed. When was the last time you saw a 16 seed upset a 1 seed in the women's game? Just doesn't happen. You know why? Because they don't have the same talent. The talent is not spread across the college basketball landscape in the women's game as it is the men's game. As I told you, I was going to show you that this is not equal. All of you out there who are crowing that it is, that's just not a fact. Now, look, this is not to disrespect the women. I think their game is beautiful. It is evolving. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It will get there. Maybe. But there's still a lot of women who don't like athletics. There's still a lot of women who like to be pretty and dress up. But it's evolving. Watching that game with South Carolina and Iowa, it was interesting to watch. I had to turn the volume down. In fact, I really didn't tune in until the second half because I just didn't want to hear the hype of Caitlin Clark. I just didn't. No disrespect to Caitlin Clark, but I mean, she was getting away with murder. She was pushing people. You know, someone did a montage of Caitlin Clark, what she was able to get away with in this tournament. No. Okay? But my point is that you've got these 10, there's been 10 since its inception. It's been 10 since 85, 86. The last men's team to go undefeated was 76, 10 years prior. All things aren't equal here. And there are a lot of people who don't want to say this because they want to be politically correct. But as you all know, I talk facts on this show. That's what we're doing today. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to tell you why the 38-0 and why Don Staley would not be successful coaching men. You're listening to the Weekly Sports Magazine. I'm Dynamic Dave on JoyNetRadio.com. gorgeous. Are you doing something different? There's a healthy glow about you.
Thanks. I'm just my natural self.
Come on, what's your secret?
Okay, since I found SkinTentional.com, I've been getting a lot of those comments.
SkinTentional.com?
Yes, SkinTentional.com is handcrafted, luxurious natural baths and body care products. Crafted for those with a designer's taste for high-quality skincare products but won't break your bank. From body butter to oils and soaps, SkinTentional has something for everyone, including the man in your life. Get your man some beard balm and oils. And yes, they offer body butters and soap for him as well, without making him smell like flowers. Go to SkinTentional.com and check out their amazing products. They believe self-care should be an intentional and joyous experience for all. SkinTentional.com.
Business owner, can I talk to you for a moment? How many people have come up to you and said, hey, I didn't know you had a business? Yeah, that can happen when you don't advertise. I have a solution for you. Advertise on JoinedRadio.com and let the world know that you're in business. I know what you're thinking. Advertising is so expensive. I've got a great package for you that will cut your expense and increase your bottom line. It's only $125 for startup and new businesses. Call me, David W. Coleman, at 615-554-0568, and I'll put together a package specifically for your business. Now is the time to tell the world, hey, I'm in business. Come spend your money on quality goods in my store. Let us help you at JoinedRadio.com. Here's the number. Call me, 615-554-0568. We are here to assist you in building your brand.
Coleman's Dynamic Products would like to thank you for all the support you've given us over the years. Our growth could not have happened without your purchases and word of mouth to your friends and family. That says you believe and trust us to provide Coleman's Dynamic Products with no fillers and all natural ingredients. We began with our flagship product, Rib Rub, and now it has expanded into snacks, seasonings, salts, rib juice, and pepper juice. We could not have done it without you. I'm David W. Coleman, founder and president, and I want to personally thank you for the encouraging words and support. Coleman's Dynamic Products will continue to be the best dry marinades, seasonings, and sauces you've ever put in your mouth. That's ribrub.com, RIBBRUBB, and you know what we like to say, bake it, grill it, smoke it, oh yeah. Welcome back to the Weekly Sports Magazine. We've dedicated this entire hour to talk women's sports, particularly college basketball, since we just wrapped up the Final Four. Congratulations to the South Carolina Gamecocks, the women's team who won the national title, and Dawn Staley. Just a wonderful, wonderful win. I think many of us were cheering for Dawn Staley because of how the national media was reacting to Caitlin Clark, and we saw that reaction after Clark lost, and they decided that they would focus on the losing team as opposed to the winning team, and it ticked a lot of people off, and it should have, because never before have we seen such a media frenzy around one player after they lose a national championship game, and it's been going on. And certainly, by the way, the women outpaced the men as far as viewers are concerned for the first time in the Final Four history. They had something like 18.8. The men had 18.4. I think a lot of it had to do certainly with the hype. ESPN had a vested interest of hyping it because most of those games were on ESPN. And then I think the time of the Final Four for the women and men were different, whereas the women on a Sunday afternoon around 3 p.m., the men on a Monday night at 9 p.m., got to get up and go to work the next morning. I think all of that played into it. But of course, the media is not going to say that because they want to continue to push their agenda, which was Caitlin Clark and women's basketball. Okay, and if you want to do that, that's fine. Let's just make sure that it's fair and it's equal. So, I want to take a little bit to talk a little bit about Dawn Staley and the hype around her. After Monday, after the women's game, and South Carolina went 38-0, they there were a lot of national media types saying that that Don Staley was the best coach in America. Men and women. I scoffed at that. Don Staley is a heck of a women's coach. Playing in a league that has limited talent. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some talent. There's some talented women, but I'm saying there is not enough talent that is spread around. See, where Don Staley has been able to stockpile this talent. You know, Gino Auriemma did the same thing. That's why on that list that I gave you earlier about the undefeated teams, 5 of those teams are UConn teams. And I made that same argument that, and I think Gino Auriemma made some comment after one of these teams. Well, he had done an interview, and he basically said women's college basketball will arrive once they are not going 39-0, and I'm paraphrasing something along those lines. So Gino Auriemma understood that, yeah, it's great that they were going 39-0 and they were winning national championships, but he knew that the league was not equal. So for national media to say that Don Staley is the best college basketball coach in America was an affront to men who coach this game. Are you telling me that Don Staley is a better coach than Bill Self? There are a lot of coaches out there. You telling me that she's better than him? You telling me that she's a better coach than John Calipari? What about Dan Hurley for UConn? It was so funny because, you know, the next night UConn won the national title. And then they would say, well, Dan Hurley is this. Just the day, and I listened to the same show. I'm in my car a lot during the day. And that very same show was talking about how great Dan Hurley was. Now, wait a minute. Just the day before, you were saying that Don Staley was the best coach in America. Now you're saying it's Dan Hurley. Which is it? Now, I'm not trying to take anything away from Don Staley. You got to be, look, to go undefeated in any league is tough. And especially to do it with all the pressure that was on you. But to say she was the best coach in America, no. You telling me that she's a better coach than Eric Musselman? What about Bryce Drew? What? I could go down an entire list. What about Nate Odoms, who took his team to the Final Four for Alabama? Is she better than Nate Odoms? I'm just asking for a friend. Because, see, we get caught up in this hype and we forget about the facts. Part of the reason that I told you about that undefeated list is because, again, all things are not equal. So after they started saying that, another talk show host began to say that after the thing broke about John Calipari and going to Arkansas, the story was, should they being Kentucky, hire Don Staley? I laughed. And apparently a lot of Kentucky alums laughed as well. Remember, all things are not equal. They're not equal. Could Don Staley coach men? Yeah, I think so. Could she get them to become number one with all the parameters that go on with college sports now, and the NIL and of course the I guess you could say the leveling of talent? Because see, what has happened in men's college basketball, that's why a lot of people didn't want the Kentucky job. See, it used to be, 15 years ago when Calipari took that job, that was the dream job. It's not anymore. Kentucky has been bringing in great recruits. They're not going to Final Fours. They're not winning national championships because there's been a leveling of talent across the spectrum. And certainly the NIL has created that even more. Whereas in women's basketball, that's why you got those 11 teams now that are undefeated, that have went undefeated. That talent is still concentrated, mainly in Storrs, Connecticut, at the UConn Huskies with Gino Auriemma. It's beginning to spread out a little bit, but it's still, in my opinion, it still has 4 or 5 years to go. Plus, you gotta refresh, and many people are hoping that now that women's college basketball is getting such a look now, that there'll be more young women who will play that game. We don't know. But Dawn Staley is not the best coach in America, nor would she would have been successful at Kentucky. The other thing is this. Kentucky fans wouldn't have had... Look, I guarantee you, Mitch Barnhart didn't... That idea didn't cross his mind one iota. There may have been someone who was in a meeting who brought it up, and I could probably tell you the reaction to many of those people in that meeting was they were looking at the bottom of their brains. In other words, they were rolling their eyes. So don't give me this about she should have been going to Kentucky. I know you want to hype your station. I know everybody is on this bandwagon of trying to be politically correct, but at the end of the day, all things are not equal. And it certainly isn't in women's college basketball and men's college basketball. It's simply not equal. A 38-0 championship in women's is not equal to a 35-3 in men. And if you think they are, let me ask you a question. Since you think it's equal, let's take both wouldn't you love to see, what was it? You know, back in the day, they used to have a consolation game. Did y'all know that? They used to play, you'd have the final 2 teams that would play, and then you would have the consolation game. Well, the consolation game would play first, and then the final 2 games. They stopped that. So let's say, for instance, now that the women and men, and y'all think that they're equal as far as basketball is concerned, UConn versus South Carolina. Would you like to see that? How many points do you think UConn would beat South Carolina by? I would say if it's a no mercy game, I could see them beating them by 50. I'm not kidding. I'm not trying to be condescending. That UConn team, look, think about it. They were beating teams this year. The average margin of victory was 15 points. There was no one close. Wait a minute. So you're saying that Dawn Staley's team would beat UConn? It sounds preposterous, doesn't it? You know why? Because it is. Because it is. And all of these arguments that people are trying to make about Dawn Staley needs to be coaching men. Dawn Staley is doing exactly what she needs to be doing, and that's coaching the women. She's doing a fantastic job. At some point, there may be a woman who will coach a men's sport. The other question that you got to ask is, how will those men respond? You know, sport is a dog-eat-dog world. You know, they call it talking smack. Could you imagine your coach being a woman and you going up against another team? Could you imagine that? I know they probably make Disney movies about stuff like this, but at the end of the day, all things are not equal. It wouldn't be pretty. They'll be fighting a lot. And then the question is, how much respect would you get from the male players? Now, I know a lot of these males are simps these days, but at the end of the day, the average male player is going to say, I don't think she can teach me. That built-in machismo, that built-in bias that men have. I think it would do Don Staley a disservice trying to coach a men's team. I would be, maybe that would be something, her goal. I don't know. But the question is, would she be as successful in the men's arena as she is in the women's arena? And I would argue that she would not. Don't get mad at me. That doesn't mean that she's not an excellent coach. Kim Mulkey is an excellent coach. The Stanford coach, I can't think of her name, she just retired. She has, according to what the statistics are, and she has more wins than anyone else. Okay? More wins than anyone else, men or women. Okay? Is that equal? Tara Vanderveer is who I'm trying to think of. She has 12,016 wins. Gino Auriemma, by the way, is 3 behind her, so he's going to break that record next season. She has more wins than anyone that has ever coached college basketball. This is why you can't, in my opinion, you should not be lumping them together. Because again, those are not equal. Those wins are not equal. The competition. Look, Pat Summitt, she changed college basketball for women. I remember when I was in high school, back in the 10th and 11th grade, a good friend of mine, Larry James, and I used to go down to Little Rock Mills because he attended Mills, and we'd watch college basketball. We'd watch women's basketball games, and they were playing 6-on-6. In other words, they would dribble to the half-court line, and you couldn't go over the half-court line, and pass it over the half-court line, and then the other 3 would go and play offense. That's how women's basketball used to be. It was Pat Summitt who decided that, hey, if you're going to play for me, she would not recruit girls who played 6-on-6 basketball. She changed that whole dynamic. Okay? She changed that whole dynamic. So, at the end of the day, when you go back and you look at, and I'll just quickly go down this list: Tara Vanderveer, Gino Auriemma, Pat Summitt, Barbara Stevens, C. Vivian Stringer. That's the top 5. But you compare their winning percentage against the men's winning percentage, and you lump them together and say Tara Vanderveer is the winningest coach in college basketball history. No, they're not equal. They're not. Because if you're going to do that, if you're going to say that about Tara Vanderveer, then don't you have to say that about this young lady right here? Don't you have to say it about the young lady that I just told you about that has more points than Caitlin Clark? I'm sorry, I went blank there for a moment. Don't you have to talk about Pearl Moore? If you're going to tell me that Tara Vanderveer is the winningest coach in basketball history, then don't you have to say that Pearl Moore is still the reigning scoring champion in women's college basketball? I would think so. Now, look, you all can call me a chauvinist all you want. I don't care. I really don't. What matters to me is facts. That's what matters to me. And at the end of the day, you all are so desperate. I even started hearing people talking about the WNBA, they ought to be making the same amount. No, they shouldn't, because it's a revenue-based sport, just like the NBA. Why should they be making the same amount? You all tell me. I'm just asking for a friend. Okay? So, I love me some, where is, oh, there it is. I love me some college basketball, and I'm glad to see women are getting their due. But at the end of the day, Dawn Staley needs to stay just where she is, and that's women's basketball. That's just the bottom line. All right? So let's take a break. This will be our last segment coming up. You're listening to the Weekly Sports Magazine. I'm Dynamic Dave on JoinedRadio.com.
Focus Radio and the Weekly Sports Magazine. We here at JoinedRadio.com would like to thank you for all the love and support you've given us. Our goal is to keep you inspired and informed daily with quality programming from gospel music, news, talk, and sports. Log on to JoinedRadio.com for the program lineup, and while there, be sure to make a donation. Then download our app and carry us anywhere in the world. Please continue to spread the word about JoinedRadio.com, and if you are an entrepreneur or have an upcoming event, or you'd like to start a show, let the professional writers and producers here at JoinedRadio.com help you get the word out. Call me at 615-554-0568 for more details. In the meantime, stay informed and inspired daily right here on JoinedRadio.com.
David W. Coleman here for Coleman's Dynamic Rib Rub and Rib Nuts. Go to ribrub.com, that's RIBBRUBB.com right now, and stock up on the best dry marinades for baking, grilling, and smoking your favorite meats. 3 great flavors, hot and spicy, original, and scorching. Try them at your next cookout and you will shout, bake it, grill it, shake it, oh yeah! Only one place to get Coleman's Dynamic products, that's ribrub.com. Easy to order, and I'll ship direct to you or to friends and family anywhere in the United States. While on the site, be sure to check out other great items, especially the rib nuts. Who'd have thunk it? Peanuts sauteed in a barbecue marinade? That's just crazy good. Get them at ribrub.com right now, along with other great recipes. That's ribrub.com. If you don't like my rib rub or rib nuts, I'll give you money back. Do it today. That's Coleman's Dynamic Products at ribrub.com.
Listen. Did you miss Dr. Ernest Gill from UT San Antonio?
When you're making $455 million off these student athletes, and all you can come up with is $5,000, John Calipari makes $8 million a year, and his players are going to get $5,000 a year. The majority of these teams were white men and white males and females. Would this be happening? And I would say no, because their families wouldn't let it happen. But we're letting our kids get pimped.
Join the Weekly Sports Magazine every Saturday, 8 to 10 a.m. on JoinedRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to the last segment of the show. A few more things about women's college basketball. I told you I was going to spend the entire hour on this because I think I needed to debunk some issues. I talked a little bit earlier about how the cameraman followed Iowa after they lost. They basically disrespected Dawn Staley's team. Jemele Hill, who used to work for ESPN, she downplayed the Caitlin Clark effect of women's basketball while also railing against the media for not affording the same coverage to black players. You see, this is why people were upset. She acknowledged Clark as stoking overall curiosity, according to an interview she did with uprocks.com. But she goes on to say this. She says, everything about this sport has been trending up for years. It did not start with Caitlin Clark, but they're treating it like it did. Okay? And so it's already creating a false narrative that is doing the public a disservice. She goes on to say, if you look at WNBA ratings and women's college basketball ratings, they have been exploding for the last 7 to 10 years, or I would even say 5 to 7 years if you want a shorter window. And so it's been proven that people really enjoy the sport. They enjoy the stars in the sport, and they enjoy the sport itself. And I'm not completely convinced that the media understands the difference. Okay? She said the media has done a terrific job in hyping women's sports, for sure. It will overload in one direction, referring to covering white players such as Clark or UConn Paige Bueckers, compared to how former South Carolina star and current Las Vegas Aces star A'ja Wilson was handled. Wilson is probably the best player in the world right now, according to Hill. And I'm not trying to act like she gets no coverage, but the coverage that sometimes non-white women get, and especially black women get, is not even close. It's 2 to 1. I mean, Aaliyah Boston was the best player in college just a couple of years ago, and she did not even get a tenth of the coverage that Caitlin Clark did. Now, some people would say, oh, it's her name, but I don't think it was that. She's tremendous on television. I'm thinking, what a missed opportunity for the national media to really elevate who she was as a person. Caitlin Clark seems to be a great personality, but it is not Caitlin Clark. It is not like Caitlin Clark is walking around saying crazy stuff. They're just covering her excellence, and that's good enough. Whereas it feels like the black athletes, to get the same coverage or even fair coverage, has to be something extra beyond basketball. And if you saw that with Angel Reese. Angel Reese is a pretty darn good basketball player. Now, she has some faults, but what did they highlight? What she said, what she did. They rarely talked about the things that she did on the court. So I agree with Jemele Hill. And the point is, it goes back to, what did they do at the end of the game? They were showing Caitlin Clark. And go back and look. I sat here and I watched. They showed Caitlin Clark. They even in the congratulation line, where the players walk beside each other and shake hands, it was all on Caitlin Clark. They never showed South Carolina at all. Because you know why? South Carolina is a predominantly black team. Caitlin Clark was their great white hope. Everybody saw it. Everybody saw it. Everybody knew what they were doing. So we still have a problem with the media. I tell you all the time, the media is what made black men dangerous. They control the narrative. When we talk about the importance of having black media, that's why I do what I do here at JoynetRadio.com. It is important that we tell our story. My very good friend, Dr. Rosie Milligan, who is about to have Black Writers on Tour in Los Angeles, one of the themes that she's been using for decades is, who will tell our story? That's why it's important that you all have got to start supporting black media. What you saw in that South Carolina-Iowa game is a classic example of how the media, and it wasn't just that game, but all year long as it related to the hype of Caitlin Clark. What you saw was the white media hyping their great white hope. And that's sad. They do. Look, they're doing the same thing with Drake May, believe it or not, in football. We forget that last year, three black quarterbacks were the first quarterbacks taken in the NFL draft. Look, they've got to hype Drake May. They got to hype J.J. McCarthy. What are they doing to Michael Penix? Oh, well, he's a little older and he has injury problems. Well, no. Look, Michael Penix Jr. was the best thrower, passer, and now you're beginning to hear even these talk shows say the same thing. The best passer in the league was in college football last year was Michael Penix Jr. So why are y'all talking about he's going to go in the second round? Why is it that a quarterback who had the worst passing statistics of all of these quarterbacks who they're considered tough and good, J.J. McCarthy had the worst passing statistics of all of them? Because they want to hype their white people. And it's sad. It's sad that we're still in this day and time. Whereas that you don't hype them based on who they are and what they are. You hype them based on color. And that's what's going on. That's what's happening. That's what happened with South Carolina and Iowa. And you see it happening even today in the NBA, in the NFL draft. You see it. It's obvious. And many of the female players understood that. The white ones even made the point. More importantly, they were trying to make it as though, I loved it when they would interview some of these WNBA players and they would try to pretend like Caitlin Clark was going to be the be-all to end-all, and these WNBA players who were veterans would reel off some of these greats that was before Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is the greatest of all time. Well, wait a minute. How could she be the greatest of all time if she never won a NCAA championship? Diana Taurasi said, "Hey, when you get into the league, you're not gonna be playing against 18-year-olds. You're gonna be playing against grown women who've been in this league a long time. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be as easy as you think it is." Diana Taurasi, by the way, she's white. So the point I'm trying to make is that we can't get caught up in this hype, and it is nothing but hype. Let's make sure that we stick with the facts. Okay? All right, we got to get out of here. I hope you all enjoyed the show. We'll be doing more shows. Hopefully, the next show that we do, the studio won't be set up. I will tell you that the studio probably won't be set up till mid-May. Because now that I've got a place, I'm going to have to go back to Little Rock, load up a truck, and bring all of my studio stuff up here, because some of that stuff is still in Little Rock in storage. So I'll be in Little Rock May 1st, and we'll begin that process. And hopefully by mid-May, we'll have at least the beginnings of my studio set up and ready to roll. But I appreciate you all sticking with us. We do plan to have a fresh show for Black Focus Radio Monday morning, so stick and stay for that as well. I appreciate all the support. Please like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend about Black Focus Radio and the Weekly Sports Magazine. And don't forget to support our sponsors, RibRub.com and Skintentional. We've got to get out of here. Enjoyed it. Hope you did as well. We'll talk to you soon.
Black Focus Radio and the Weekly Sports Magazine. We here at JoinedRadio.com would like to thank you for all the love and support you've given us. Our goal is to keep you inspired and informed daily with quality programming from gospel music, news, talk, and sports. Log on to JoinedRadio.com for the program lineup, and while there, be sure to make a donation. Then download our app and carry us anywhere in the world. Please continue to spread the word about JoinedRadio.com. And if you are an entrepreneur or have an upcoming event, or you'd like to start a show, let the professional writers and producers here at JoinedRadio.com help you get the word out. Call me at 615-554-0568 for more details. In the meantime, stay informed and inspired daily right here on JoinedRadio.com.
David W. Coleman here for Coleman's Dynamic Rib Rub and Rib Nuts. Go to ribrub.com, that's RIBBRUBB.com right now, and stock up on the best dry marinades for baking, grilling, and smoking your favorite meats. 3 great flavors, hot and spicy, original, and scorching. Try them at your next cookout and you will shout, bake it, grill it, shake it, oh yeah! Only one place to get Coleman's Dynamic products, that's ribrub.com. easy to order, and I'll ship direct to you or to friends and family anywhere in the United States. While on the site, be sure to check out other great items, especially the rib nuts. Who'd have thunk it? Peanuts sauteed in a barbecue marinade? That's just crazy good. Get them at ribrub.com right now, along with other great recipes. That's ribrub.com. If you don't like my rib rub or rib nuts, I'll give you money back. Do it today. That's Coleman's Dynamic Products at ribrub.com.
Listen.
Did you miss Dr. Ernest Gill from UT San Antonio?
When you're making $455 million off these student athletes and all you can come up with is $5,000, John Calipari makes $8 million a year, and his players are going to get $5,000 a year. The majority of these teams were white men and white males and females. Would this be happening? And I would say no, because their families wouldn't let it happen. But we're letting our kids get pimped.
Join the Weekly Sports Magazine every Saturday, 8 to 10 a.m. on joinetradio.com.
Thanks for listening to the Weekly Sports Page with Dynamic David Coleman.
On Dice Rights, ice cream, alert, 654 Jose. Okay, 1-0.
Tune in every Saturday morning from 9 to 10.
Check it, Brown Richmond, 96 double, 96 double. Check, oh, what a player, what a player.
Until next week.